Hello, and welcome to Borrow My Belief, a podcast that's designed to inspire you to live from your heart, go for your dreams, and live your truth, which is something that I didn't always do. And today I've got a great guest, and I've just realized I don't even know if I pronounce your name right. Oh my God, you're going to introduce yourself. I think that's the best way. Well,
Okay,
great start.
Azza is the name. It's like we've just met.
But we haven't. I just realized I'm going to say this wrong.
Yeah. So yeah, Azher Rabbani. I just realized my second name's not there. So, um, so yeah. So I am firstly grateful to be on the podcast. Thank you very much for inviting me. And I'm I'm a human being. Let's start with that one first. Yeah. Um,
I'm not even going to edit this. I'm just going to keep it just so that
yeah.
people can see what happens. Because no,
I thought about the introduction today while I was making coffee, and I thought I'm going to be something. I'm going to do something different. So I'm going to just introduce myself by saying I'm a human being.
this is brilliant. Oh my God. So I'm going to keep talking about you. We met in online. How long was it?
Yes.
About how long ago was it? It would be when you first joined, I think,
Yeah, about 2 years ago.
2 years ago,
Yeah.
in a community that I've been in for roughly 5 years. And I resonated with you straight away because we've got similar stories in some senses. So, just to give people an idea, it's a community to help people build digital platforms
Mm.
to create whatever freedom lifestyle or a second income or just to create something. And that's where we met. And like I said, we discovered that you and I had some similarities. So you stood out to me when we met. And now you do work with them. And I don't want to take the story away. So by saying it, why don't we start with the background of what brought you to this community and then we can go from there?
Yeah, certainly. I think you'll have to go back a little further back for that one. Um, I ran a business, a very, very uh, busy business in hospitality. Set that up. Oh God, 1990. We set that up,
Mm.
and it was a family business, so everyone was in it. My older brother, myself, eventually my younger sister, younger brother joined, and my two parents.
Wow.
So we're originally Indian, but I was born in the UK. Been all over the world. My father used to live in Saudi Arabia, and we stayed there for 22 years. I grew up there. American educated, British educated, a whole bunch of stuff. Very colorful. Uh, I traveled a lot, and finished my degree in Boston, came back to the UK, couldn't find a job. So eventually ended up in the bank. Oh, of course, one of the most boring jobs in the world. Uh, yeah, terrible. Anyway, I'm not saying I was about to say thankfully, actually, it went down. No, but that's not a very nice thing to say. But it released me from being in banking, and I was out of job. And my brother just said to me, "Here you go. Here's Yellow Pages. I've just hired you. You're gonna sell." And I knew I could sell because I had sold before. I can communicate reasonably well. Um, and just built it. I walked the streets in London, and I built that business from 0 to 60 million. Just walking 18 years of walking and meeting people and connecting, and very proud of that actually.
Mm.
And this is pre-internet era, or the internet was just about coming in. So this is all but word of mouth. And we were a force in that community. The service we provided was second to none. Probably one of the reasons why it didn't survive. Um, and I think the hardest part of that was the family.
Mm.
Uh, you know, looking back on it now, it was my dad's dream. This
Mm.
is my father's dream. And we talk about this a lot, don't we? In a lot of the calls, live your dream.
Mm.
And I was standing on the wrong mountain. peering out, living somebody else's dream, trying to be happy. And I had everything. I mean, if you had seen me from outside in, I had everything. I had a 6-bedroom house. I had, driving a 911, Range Rover, you name it, kids going to private school, 4 kids. Um, yeah, I lived in a good part of the world, in Crowthorne and near Bracknell, near Reading. And, life looked good.
Mhm.
But I was unhappy. I was
That's
unhappy.
exactly where I was. That's where I resonated you.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I was happy until I wasn't happy, interestingly enough. I don't think I was ever completely fulfilled, but I was really quite happy. And then one day I looked around and went, oh my gosh, I'm not living my own dream here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think something's just come to my mind when you've been saying that, and is that, you know when you're really busy in survival,
Hmm.
building something, you don't think about your fulfillment.
No.
It's this hierarchy, Maslow's hierarchy. It's towards the bottom, and you're building, you're bringing comfort in your life. You don't think about fulfillment. It's right kind of at the top.
Mhm.
And when you have the money, and you have the life, and you've got the kids, and you've got the relationship, so called, I'm going to touch on the relationship. um, I'm not saying you get bored, but you don't have that struggle and strife anymore. You search for more. You search for a purpose. You search for, why am I doing this?
Mm.
And it comes when it was easier, when it was harder yet easier when we were starting, physically harder, mentally easier. And as it grew, it became mentally harder and physically easier because I wasn't doing all the work. I was physically, um, and I think that's hard. That the mental element of it is, that's where fulfillment sits. And when you're not mentally, there, contentment is I'm just going to digress a little bit here. Contentment is really, really, to me, I've defined it. It's really important. So contentment is that base that we've got. We all search for contentment. Okay, it's that constant. It's the common denominator. It's that base. Now, you could be unhappy, you could be happy, you could be joyful, you could be sad. These are emotions. They fluctuate, they come and go. What's really important is to have contentment. You could be content and happy, you can be content and sad, you could be content and angry, but contentment is the constant, and those emotions come and go. And that's what I discovered that my fulfillment, uh, was missing. My contentment was missing. I used to say to my mother, Mom, I'm searching. I'm not happy.
I
You
can get
know?
that because what I'm hearing as I'm listening to you is you were in survival mode, really. You were acting from survival and making things happen. And even I recognize it in that even when I was wealthy, I remember my brother-in-law at the time turned around to me and said, you understand you're wealthy. You understand that you're in the top. I can't remember what percent he said.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, what? I can't be in that top
Mm.
5% or 10% or whatever
Yeah.
it was.
Yeah.
Because I felt like I didn't have money. And I've had clients now, and I'm able to look back, and I'm able to really kind of digest it and think about it, because a while ago, it's 6 years since I left that life. But I've got clients who they could retire tomorrow and they still feel like they don't have money.
Mm. Yeah.
And I get it. There was so much fear of losing things.
Yeah.
And well, for me, my journey was just to go and walk off a cliff and splatter myself on the floor and then go from there. That was my journey. It doesn't have to be everybody's journey, but
Yeah.
what I discovered through that journey was contentment,
Yeah.
fulfillment come from different places. And I wonder whether I had to destroy everything to find that within myself.
Well, I don't think you need to destroy everything, or I need to destroy everything. I think nature does that
Yeah, yeah,
to teach us.
yeah. I agree. Yeah.
The funny thing is um, when you are not true to yourself. I mean, there's so much that's coming to my mind at the moment. North Star Alex Eastman talks about intrinsic and extrinsic alignment.
Mhm.
What is true to ourselves? Are we aligned with is our intrinsic aligned with our extrinsic? So, the values that I hold for myself.
Mhm.
So I'm going to use an example. So if integrity and honesty and all that, creativity, fairness, justice, these are some of my values, right? And I'm working for a business
Mhm.
that, for example, is not just the way that it behaves, or the people that are in it, the type of people they're hiring,
Mm.
then I'm misaligned.
True.
And in the same way, if I look at my own life and what I never wanted to work in a family business, and I made it very clear to my dad, but I ended up doing that. So
Mm.
I was being misaligned to myself.
Yeah.
I should have said, and I know when I should have said it. I
Mm.
know that virtually the time and the day when I should, you know what? No, I'm not going to do that. But I was too scared. There's too much fear. Now, the interesting thing about fear is that as the business grew, there were 3 attempts I tried to leave.
Mm.
And in those 3 attempts, the loudest voice was my own. Yes, there were others. I mean, I'm not going to mention names, but there were others in the family. There was emotional blackmail going on. There was all sorts of stuff going on. What will you do? Who will listen to you? You know, what they were worried about was actually what will they do? It's
Yeah.
not what I would do. I didn't realize it at the time.
Wow.
And I had obviously I had my kids going to private school. I had this huge mortgage. I had all these expenses, and I thought, how am I going to do this if I walk away? And there's always a way, Joe. There's always a way,
Mhm.
but you just don't sit in that headspace to think about how. Um, and we were the traditional family. My parents were quite controlling, and you know um, they loved us. That's what they knew.
Yep.
That's what they knew. I'm not going to make them bad about it, but and I've gone through my own journey with my mother before she passed away 4 years ago. Uh, and I we hammered heads together. We banged our heads together um, for 2 years before she was very ill. But I had to do it. I had to offload everything that I had against her.
Mhm.
You know, my dad's still alive. He's very ill. So I it wasn't a family business. It was a lot more than that. It was life,
Yeah.
our life. Yeah. Anyway, so ran for 26, 27 years. Cut long story short, as success came, um, ingratitude sort of creeped in. Lack of gratitude
Mm.
for each other, for the values we were bringing to the business. I have people who still call me today, employees, people in my team. I had 23 under me, who still seek my advice.
Mm.
The people who call me up, there's a guy who walked the walk with us. I mean, 27 years, he was there on our side. He gave his left hand to us. And I was leaving for Canada. He heard that I was leaving. This is 2 years ago. He called me up 2 days before I left. He goes, I'm, he said, I'm just so sad. I can't. And it was, we're talking about 5, 6 years after the business had disappeared. He said, I have moved on. He said,
Mm.
what you guys built, his children are lawyers and doctors. He is what I would call not educated. He's educated, but you know, he doesn't feel he's educated. He said, my children are where they are because of what you guys gave me.
Mm.
You see, that is fulfillment.
That's fulfillment. Yeah, that is fulfillment.
That even talking about it, the hairs on my
Yeah,
back
yeah.
standing up,
Truth bumps, I call that. There's a couple of things there's a few things you said there. Just bear with me.
Yeah,
So, you talked about the North Star, and that's part of the community that we're in. And just to explain to people that there's a program within it where we go through a process with somebody, and it helps us find our values, and it's very well rounded because it just doesn't talk about setting up a business. It talks about health, it talks about yourself, and it also talks about social and community as well as wealth. So it's a really good part of the program. I just wanted to mention that because people might think,
sure. Yeah,
what is that?
absolutely.
Also, I what I actually do, and it's really hard to explain to people sometimes, and I get it across, is something called inner child work. And I often find in the position I'm in right now that when people end up in front of me and they can't seem to move forward, and whether that be, I mean, I like to work with people who want to birth something. So uh, a business or whatever, but where it can be anything. It could be they can't find the right partner, or they can't leave the person they're with because they're too scared, or they can't leave the job or whatever. Without fail, every single time that I work with people, when we go to the inner child and we work with that, is when they move on, when they meet various, it's really deep work, but when they meet various aspects of their childhood and resolve unresolved stuff, they're able to move on to the next thing and then be their true self, and then move into this place of service. And that's kind of what ends up happening, doesn't it? You end up with a sense of purpose, and you move into service, and it's so different.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It's my why, by the way,
Mm-hmm.
service.
Yeah.
So that's really interesting. You bring that word up. Inner child. If I go back to my childhood, we had a good childhood. My parents provided. Their own relationship was very rocky, so that always impacted, especially me. I remember when we were young, my father and mother used to fight a lot. Even to her last dying days, they were the same. They didn't change. Um, I remember my older brother used to gather us up, all of us, and take us to one side of the room, one side of the house. I was always scared. I was very fearful of my father. And he was a brilliant man. I mean, he himself went through ethnic cleansing in the sort of Indian Pakistan part. He lost his dad in that. So for a guy who lost everything at 11 to come up the way he did, he was the first person in his family that went to university, topped it. He's a civil engineer, got a scholarship to come to the UK. I mean, his story is just you can make a movie out of it, and yet, you know, um, he did certain things that just didn't fit into my world.
Yeah.
You know,
I find the same with everybody. It doesn't matter if I work with somebody who had the perfect upbringing to somebody who had a very traumatic
yeah,
upbringing. There's always something that affected them that's affected
yeah,
them now in
yeah.
adulthood.
I went to boarding school and I got abused, racially abused for most of my time there, 5 years. And interestingly, I was a token black guy
Mm.
there. And it was an all boys white school in Oxford. And a few years before that, and this is how the brain works. So
Yeah.
this is not making him bad. This is me. Yeah. So I remember actually very clearly. So Dad, I said, Dad, don't send, because we were in Saudi Arabia at the time, in Saudi, and there's this talk going on that the Saudi government may bring in a law where expats can't send their kids to European schools, American schools. So I said to my father at the time when I first heard of it, I said, I don't want to go to a boarding school. And lo and behold, what he does, he puts me in a boarding school. Um, and then and then all the sort of abuse started. And for years, Joe, I linked that abuse to my dad, and I blamed him for it.
Mm.
I mean, I'm talking about 4 decades. In
Hmm.
fact, I can tell you till 2017,
Hmm.
until I went to Landmark, and did a few courses there, and realized actually I've got to disconnect it because my dad had nothing to do with it.
Mm. And it's valid because as we're growing up, we see the world in a certain way. And also going back to, let's call it the entrepreneurial journey as well, and you're building a business of your own, I think it's the best self-development program I have ever done. I think it's more spiritual than any spirituality
Yep.
avenue that I mean, I live in Glastonbury. It's the spiritual hub of the UK.
Right.
And for me, building a business has been the most hardcore spiritual self-development. I've been into manifestation since I was 22, and I've studied it for 34, 35 years now, I think it is. And this by far is the best way to grow and evolve than anything that I've come across.
Mm. Yeah.
Because each time you take a step along that journey, people wonder. There was a post today in the community where someone said they were coming up to the end of the year and they couldn't understand why they hadn't got further than they had. And I thought, you've come further than you realize you have, because it's internal.
Yeah, it's look, I mean, it's how we measure. It's
Yeah.
how we measure. What are the milestones you're measuring by? If it's money, yeah, I mean, it, it's the wrong measure. I'm going to put it that way, okay? And I mean, if I look at myself and I mean, everybody, if they look at themselves where they were in their 18, 19, where they are today, we're different people. We're completely, unrecognizable. I was an angry guy when I was young. I was lacked contentment. I wanted at that stage, even in my late teens or mid-teens, I was searching for contentment of heart. Even at that young age,
Yeah.
I felt so disrupted.
Well, wise.
Possibly, maybe an old soul sitting in this young body of mine at that time. But it's interesting because you know. The 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 childhood, um, that boarding school experience then led to my biggest risk that I took,
And what was that?
and I eloped with a woman who was 10 years older than me. I was 18. Um, you can imagine being of Asian origin at that time. My mother was the queen of the house, and I basically kicked both my parents in their nuts,
Hmm.
basically, basically. And again, going back to Landmark and what I had, sort of that self development and my lack of contentment. Um, I was angry with them. I
Hmm.
was angry for what they had done to me. I was angry for my mother. Bless her. I mean, she was crying so much when she left me. I mean, I remember, Joe, that so boarding school at that time was very draconian. It's like, you leave your little child and then you go away and you're not allowed to see them.
Hmm.
You're not allowed to come back and see them. I mean, the change is
How
it's
old?
so
How
different.
old were you?
I was 12.
Yeah.
And so the only time they were allowed to see me was 3 weeks after I had started. And I remember my brother was there also. My brother and I went together. I mean, his is a different story, but my parents came to see us, and this is like 2 days before they were going to leave the UK. So they're leaving the UK, going 3,000 miles back to Saudi. And I don't know when I was going to see them when I was 12. And I remember it like yesterday. I remember where I was sitting in the tuck shop, and my mother was crying, and my brother and I were sitting next to each other. My brother was on the right hand side, I was on the left hand side, dad, mum in front of me, and she's crying. And I could not breathe. I had the biggest lump in my throat. I
Mm.
could not speak. I had just complete paralysis.
Mm.
And I wanted to shout at my dad
Mm.
because he's smiling. He's sitting there smiling. And, I've had a chat with him about it. He's a stroke victim now. So, but he didn't get it. And he said to me very recently, he said, because I speak to him quite philosophically, deeply, he goes, where do you get this stuff from? Because and he said to me, he said, um, I, I'm not deep at all. I can't think the way you think. I said, I know. You telling me?
Mm.
Yeah, I experienced you for nearly most of my life.
Yeah.
Um, we have a good relationship. I mean, anyway, going back to the elopement, cut a long story short, eventually he came over from Saudi. He was going through his own problems, financially, business wise, in Saudi. My mother, she had the sixth sense. She had sensed something was wrong. She
Mm.
had bad dreams about me, also being eaten up by some alligator or something. I don't know. And she eventually packed my father away, which is a story in itself, to try to help me, to at least talk to me. Right. I remember, sitting. It took some time for us to connect, and we were sitting in a cab going to Selfridges, in London. At the time, I used to live in Paddington with my brother,
How
and
old
he
were
was.
you at that
I
point?
was I was 18. My older brother 18, going on to 19. My older brother was finishing his last year at Imperial College in London, and he I remember. Well, he told me later. He goes, I actually called Dad up and said, you know what, I can't look after him because we were living together. I don't know what he's up to. I've got a final exam to take, and I got my life to get on with. So he kind of washed. I mean, I totally understand that. And I when I finally met Dad, he just broke down and started crying. He
Mm.
just wanted to know, what did he do wrong?
Mm.
And even then, I didn't know what he had really done wrong. I could not explain to him why I did what I did. I lost control of my life. Somebody else was controlling it,
Yeah.
you know. Um, and he cried like a baby,
Mm.
and I really felt for him at that point. And but he said one thing I will never ever forget. He said, wherever you are in your life, I will be standing on that corner, on the pavement, on that corner, and I'll be there waiting for you.
Oh. So I know that that helps. Well, for all the people that have held space for, and it's a it's a common theme that the parents actually love their children and they I mean, some of the things that I've held space for are really hard to forgive.
Yeah.
But in general, the parents are doing the best
Yeah.
with what they know
Yeah.
and how
And
they.
us as parents, me and now as a parent.
And my I have my own journey. My children are, well, I'm a grandmother as well. My
Yeah.
children are 24 and 27.
Yeah.
And I look back and I can see how I've affected them. I'm watching how I've affected them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Very much.
I've had to reconcile that within myself as well. Remember
Yeah.
a time when I really blamed myself, but now I've reconciled it because we're always doing the best we can with what we've got.
Mm. Yeah. Absolutely. And that's the journey, isn't it?
Yeah, that's
That
the
is the journey.
journey. That's the journey.
Anyway, so eventually, I flew back with him, and I spent 5 years trying to get divorced, and I got married. Actually, got married to her. So that was my kind of the big one of my first major events of my life, and I realized that I'm a bit of a risk taker.
Mm.
When it came to myself, generally I look after others, but when it comes to myself, um, and a lot happened in between. There was another person I met. Well, I knew from very young. I liked her a lot, and being Indian and sort of, it wasn't arranged, but we were talking, and but the parents wanted to get involved, and I said to I said to my father, look, I was in America at the time, and I said, fine, go ahead, talk to them, because I had already spoken to her and what have you. I said, but you need to tell the parents about my past. And she didn't know it either. So I wanted them to know before I flew over. And that's kind of where my integrity comes in, right? That look, if they say no, then fine, because I'm not emotionally invested yet. I liked her. I mean, I've watched her all my life. We grew up together. Um, and I got a phone call back saying, yeah, cool, it's all good. Yeah, fly over. So I flew over, and I got in the cab with my parents and my uncle, my dad's brother. I said, right, did you tell them?
Oh,
And they said no.
oh no, gosh, I could see that was coming. Gosh, wow. So how did you feel at that point?
Again, you see, I've seen myself on so many occasions playing small and giving in and being weak.
Mm.
I should have stopped the car. I should have got out. I should have gone back straight up that plane and out of the country. Let them deal with it.
You didn't know any better though, did you?
At that time, I was 22, 23. And so my uncle says, you know what? It's okay. It's okay. Get married and you'll deal with it. I said, oh, great. Oh, great. So I deal with it. You guys create it and I deal with it.
But
This is,
23, 23 is still young.
it is young. Absolutely. It's young, right? Anyway, and this is where, again, and I'm sitting there with this battle going on inside me. And I'm saying, you asshole, you have no integrity. What are you doing? Got engaged, parents got involved. They did this big party and everything else, right? And I flew off. I flew off back to America, finished off my degree, came back to the UK, and there was an occasion and I was feeling really bad. I was not happy with the situation. So I had an opportunity to go back to Pakistan at the time. She was living in Karachi. And I thought to myself, I'm going to tell her because we weren't married and I didn't want her to, I wanted her to know exactly what she was getting.
Mhm.
So I took her out to dinner and I said, look, this is the situation. I said, if you want to walk, walk. Don't do it 2, 3 years down the road because you mean so much to me.
Mm.
And she, it was a time of it's where we were at the time. I guess divorce in that community was not something that was, although it was happening, she was shocked naturally.
Yeah.
She was very young also. We were both young. I think she was 20 and I was 22. And she got very ill after that because she didn't tell anybody. And I
Mm.
was in the UK at the time. I'd moved back. And eventually her father got it out of her. My dad was in Karachi at the time when this whole thing blew up. And the last thing I remember her, I was working at the bank that closed down, and I was having trouble getting hold of her. And I eventually, at Swiss Cottage branch, in the tube station, they used to have those phone cards, didn't they? And you used to plug them in. So I called her, international call, and she said, "Just go home and call me. Just go home and call me." Um, and I never spoke to her again.
Mm.
Her father just blocked me off, and I had a conversation with him. He goes, "I have no problem with you. You're honest, good guy. I have a problem with your parents. They're
Mm.
liars.
Mm.
They lied."
There's a lot. I hope you can digest that.
Yeah, I have over the years. I felt so hollow, Joe. I can't tell you
Mm.
the the hole it left. And
Mm.
I really love this person. And this person came into my marriage.
Mm.
And that's where the problem started.
You went on to get married,
Yeah.
and I know you were together a long time.
Yeah, and at the same time of starting this business, the food business.
Yeah.
So I looking back on it now, I should have really given myself more time, but I was rushing as I always do. I rush things, just uh, quick, 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 and I should have given myself at least 3 years to kind of recover, just to step back. Um, my wife at the time, she was going through her own problems. A divorce was going through, and I happened to again, it's my fault, you know, I didn't talk to her enough. I should have talked to her enough. I'm quite a traditionalist. I mean, coming from that kind of, and thinking now about it, it was just the wrong thing to do. Um, and she I went up to my mom, and my mom said, "Look," I said to her, like, "This is what I'm thinking," you know. And she goes, "Why?" I said, "Well, because I'm divorced, she's divorced. We're kind of starting on the same platform, and you know, um, same level." I was very logical about it, and anyway, we got married. Long story, cut it short. And I realized within the first week, she was the wrong person.
And you were with her for 30 years.
Yeah. And I thought, no, you've made that commitment. You lay your bed, you lie in it now,
Where's your
sunshine.
integrity?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Wow.
I said, I'll make it work.
Mm.
And in that marriage, there were a lot of people that put a lot of fingers into that marriage. Her side, my mum.
Mm.
Uh, yeah.
Do you know what? Gosh, I wish I had you in a child session right now, but I'm not going to do it on. I'm not going to do it on camera. Do you know what? I wonder. I designed this podcast to speak to the person who's living a life that's no longer in alignment with themselves or has never been. So really, I'm probably speaking to you 5 years ago or something, and I wanted them to see that because I remember I had this moment where my daughter sat in a multi-story car park with me, and she turned around to me and said, "Mum, please, will you be true to yourself? Please, will you go and live your life?" And because we all want that for our parents, actually. And I turned around to her and I said, "Hey, honey, that's not going to happen for me in this lifetime, but you do it." And actually, it did happen for me in this lifetime because various things happened and I was led to. But and actually, I didn't destroy my life didn't do it to me. I destroyed my life. I
Yeah.
did it in the end. But to me, you're talking now. I feel like people listening to you will. I feel like your story will touch something inside people because all the while you're talking, there was somewhere deep inside yourself that knew. I mean, it's all perfect because look at where you are, and I know what business you're creating, and we'll get to talk about it. But and the journey you've been on is also perfect because look at all the hearts you're gonna touch. Look at all the things that you're gonna achieve. Look at the things that you've already done and the hearts that you're already touching. You've touched my heart, and therefore I've invited you on here. So it is all perfect in all this healing that's happening in the world, I believe. But I really feel like you talking this openly, and I want to thank you, is really going to touch people because, like I said, in the private sessions that I have, it's always got to do with the childhood and then what goes on after the childhood, and then now that affects us into adulthood. And then in order to live this soul contract, let's call it, or this fulfillment or this purpose or this thing that is inside of us, in order to get there, these are the things we have to face. There's no other way about it. We can't. I've not met anybody yet who's been able to do it without facing these things.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's very unusual, and I guess I'm giving myself a little bit of credit here. It's very unusual for guys to be so open,
Mm.
vulnerability. That's why I love Brene Brown because I follow her
Mm.
very closely. We us guys, we're indoctrinated, just generally. It doesn't matter which culture it is, to be strong and stoic, and don't show your emotions, don't show your feelings. You know, um, uh, be the man, right? And you can be both.
Yeah, I agree. And I actually think it's more manly. So about a year ago, I went on a mission to learn about men, and something had brought me there, and I didn't have a partner at the time, and I was very confused, and I was learning about dating and how to attract a man, and it is my integrity. I was learning all the tricks to attract a man, and they weren't sitting well with me. And I got to the point where I thought, how do I know he's with me because he wants to be with me, not just because I used all these techniques and tricks. And so I
Mm.
went on this mission and I started talking to men, and my own son included. I didn't even understand my own son, and I'm still getting to know my own son. And I should have seen it in him when he was a little boy. I mean, there's that word should, but I should have seen it in him when he was a little boy, how sensitive he was, and how society, we lived in Scotland and it's big man,
Yeah,
and if
yeah,
he did cross country and he cried, it's like, don't cry, be a big man. But yet it's all right for the girls to cry.
yeah.
um and what I discovered on this, me, and I've now got a partner and discussed this, and what I discussed is I didn't understand how sensitive men were, and it's actually beautiful and it's very manly.
Mm.
And I think men don't realize that women actually find that attractive as long as they can still be men and still
Yes,
be a safe place to be.
yes, yes,
And on
yes.
my mission to understand men, that's not what I thought I was going to find.
Yeah,
It's beautiful.
yeah. I mean, again, I can only kind of refer to myself. There's a feminine side to me. I'm going to say this. I love candles, for example. I think they're the most wonderful things. I'll sell a candle any day of the week.
I love
Um,
candles too.
yeah, yeah. I brought a candle when I first came to see my wife. I brought her an M&S, beautiful M&S candle. So that's me. So I don't. There is a feminine side to me. I tend to get on much more with women than with men. I think it's because of the fact that I'm quite open about a lot of things. I don't really hold back because what's the point? It's who I am,
Yeah,
and that's the point. I had become over the 30 years of my marriage somebody else,
that's what happened with me.
right? And it was suffocating. I was suffocating myself. And what happens is that, and again, no blame because this is not you know blame is a discharge of pain basically. So there's no
Yeah,
blame here, right?
I like that actually. Blame is a
And
discharge.
that's Brene Brown, by the way.
Wow, I'm going to start looking at her. See,
Yeah,
that's what happened to me. But my husband, he was a decent guy. It was all from my side.
yeah, yeah. And likewise, my wife at the time, she's on the face of it, she's a very quiet, generous in her own way person. Um, and looking at my life and why I was unfulfilled. I had everything. Why was I unfulfilled? Was because of the fact, and I blamed the industry, I blamed the business, I blamed my parents, I blamed blame, and her. And I realized that actually I was unfulfilled in my relationship. I'm the kind of guy that likes a reciprocating relationship, right? I'm quite intimate. I like intimacy, that sort of stuff. So and she had really struggled with communication. She struggled with the whole private sort of time that you spend together. She just didn't know how to do it because in her family they didn't do it. So it's not her fault,
Mm-hmm.
and I made it her fault. And that Fatma was the girl that I was you know I wanted to marry. I brought her into the marriage. I wanted my wife to be like her,
Mm.
and she knew that this person existed. Um, and it must have been such a hard thing for her to face.
Mm.
My husband actually likes somebody else,
Mm.
and he wants me to be her. You know, yeah, it's unfair. It's unjust.
And I hear you, and I've come to believe that it's all perfect, that we attract various characters to play roles in our lives. I would imagine Brene goes over this actually. that it's all perfection. And
Mm.
have you noticed that when you finally get quote unquote the lesson, that everything changes?
Yeah.
And in whether it's within a job, within a marriage, within a partnership, within where you live, when you finally get what that situation, it could go on for 30 years, it could only be 6 months, but when you finally get what that, so for example, I had a job where I was being bullied, and then I left that job and I got bullied in the next place. But actually, I stopped getting bullied when I finally got what was going on and why I was being bullied and what
Yeah.
my part was in it.
Yeah.
And so,
Exactly.
therefore, it can only be true that your wife was getting the medicine she needed along with the medicine that you needed.
Yeah, and one thing I learned again when I attended the various forums at Landmark was always reflect back with, again, watching it. You got to be really careful not to beat yourself up,
Mm-hmm.
but always reflect back of what role did you play
Yeah. Yeah.
in that space before you start pointing a finger at somebody else.
Yeah. And I hear you about, but I used to beat myself up constantly. And it's
Yeah,
just as bad as blaming somebody else
yeah,
because you wouldn't, yeah, have
yeah,
compassion for all parties because really, truthfully, most people are doing the best they can with the situations that they've got. And where are our anchors and our role models? And this is where I get into a rant because this is what I'm passionate about. This is why I wrote my book. This is why I'm doing what I'm doing. Because where are the role models and anchors? So the way I've done it is we keep pointing back into ourselves, into our own hearts, because like I've been listening to you, you always had the integrity. You always knew. And so my thing's all about empowering someone to be fully themselves. And to know what you talked about attraction, that is the most attractive thing. We lost ourselves within marriages, but the most attractive thing about anybody is if they're fully and complete in themselves. And if you look at YouTubers, businesses, anybody that you admire, if you really boil it down, they're being uniquely them.
yeah, 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 totally. And I think, you know, you just to go back to this sort of self or the blame thing, the
Mm-hmm.
self blame. I think it's really it's a really important, to be reflective of your faults or mistakes, call them whatever you want, is important because you may have a breakdown, and but through breakdown you get breakthrough.
Yeah.
So it's really important to be reflective. I always say to myself, don't breathe in that container. Be there, get yourself out, but don't breathe there. Don't take a breath.
I like that. And do you know what I said to my partner recently? I said, because I do all this inner child work and I have this thing that I must do the work that I do. Because I once had a mentor who didn't, and it was devastating. When I finally met them and spent time with them, they didn't do what they taught. So it's a thing within me. And so when I've been doing some really deep work recently, and I came to this conclusion of the reason why a lot of us are not willing to do the self-reflection is because it always comes with shame. And so when you do look at yourself, there's this element of, oh, I'm quite ashamed of that. But if you can meet that shame with love, boom,
You
your
have
whole life
just
will change.
you have just used the word that I was about to use. Okay. Okay.
Same
So
page, aren't we?
shame is one of those. So again, I go back to Brene because she's so good with this. So shame, and this is one of her topics, this
Mm.
big topic for her.
Mm.
So shame is, and she uses example, what shame is. So she says, if, for example, if I take myself, if I say, I made a mistake, Joe, I'm really sorry.
Mhm.
Okay, and this is sort of me saying it or internally, right? Or what shame it actually is, I made a mistake, Joe. I am the mistake.
Mm.
There's a difference between I made a mistake and I am the mistake. That's where shame sits. I am the mistake.
Oh, wow. Mm. Yeah.
And that was where I was for a very long time.
Mm. Yeah. Gosh, that landed. That really landed. Mm. And so, gosh, wow. I'm I know after your 2 years of looking into things, I know that you've moved to another country and lots of things have changed. And then obviously in the end, you stepped away from your family and you're living in your own life. And obviously you're still in touch with them. But I know that in recent times you've done some digging and some searching through these tools that we have, and you've been a bit surprised by a business that's
Yeah,
evolving, that's close to your heart, haven't you?
yeah. So during the event happened during my marriage. So we've got five kids, and this is an interesting thing. I spoke to somebody else, and they said, when you lose a child, do you say you have? Do you include that child? And so somebody says,
Oh my gosh. Listen, I'm not a man. I'm not a dad that's grieving, but I've just got to show you this. See that picture there?
yeah,
That's in memory of a miscarriage that I had.
okay, okay.
So, oh my
So
gosh,
we're talking
I
about
feel quite,
miscarriages here.
I feel quite emotional.
Yeah, we're talking about miscarriages. We're talking
Yeah.
about stillbirths. We're talking about neonatal, perinatals. So
Mhm.
and so when someone says how many kids, and I always kick myself and say four. Actually, it's five. Okay.
Mm.
So Hashim was born in on 27th of April 2005.
Wow.
On the birthday of my nephew. So I'm reminded every year. Okay.
Mm.
And so he was 3 days overdue. He never made it. Um, Full term.
Mm.
And I mean, I remember the phone call. I was at work. I knew my wife was going to see the doctor because she wasn't feeling very well.
Was,
Um,
was it your first or
no, no, he was fourth. So I
fourth?
had I had the three boys there. So my oldest was 10 at the time.
Oh gosh. And
11, yeah.
okay.
Yeah. And she called me up. She said they can't hear the heartbeat.
Mm.
She says they've asked me to go to hospital. I said okay. And that was like 1 o'clock in the afternoon on the 26th. And I said I can't even remember. Put the phone down. I ran, and
Mm.
I remember sitting in that journey to the hospital and what is going in my mind. And then I walk into the room, and she's sitting there. There's a window next to her. It's completely cream colored room, and she's the double bed, and she's sitting there looking petrified, scared, and they were waiting for me so they would do the scan again. And he was pronounced there, and my dad. I called my dad up on the way down. I said, Dad, this is what's happened. He goes, okay, I'm coming. And I remember speaking to my father when he was there, and thankfully, he says he doesn't understand feelings. He didn't say anything.
Mm.
We just cried together.
Mm.
What's interesting is the emotion still
Yeah.
there.
I can't even imagine what that must be like. I know how painful it was for me, and I wasn't that far into my pregnancy. I can't even imagine.
Yeah.
I can only
So
imagine as far. The reason I ask you whether it was your first is because mine wasn't. And people kept saying to me, it's all right, you've already got a healthy child. And that hurt.
that hurts even more because it was said to me and said to my wife at the time, and by somebody
Yeah.
very close.
And it's a baby that you love.
Yeah, because obviously there's my nephew that reminds me, and my younger brother at the time. Um, his wife was pregnant. They were 4 months behind us, and
Mm.
I felt, you just have this. I guess I have this sixth sense. I just felt they were walking on eggshells around me, around my family. So I pulled them in. I pulled them
Mm.
in, and my wife was there, and I pulled my younger brother in. And funny enough, we had a conversation. He and I had a conversation just 2 weeks ago, and
Mm.
we were, and we'll talk about the business. But he saw a post, and he texted me. He goes, "What are you doing? What's going on? Are
Mm.
you okay?" I said, let's jump on a call. And he brought this up. He goes, do you remember that you pulled me in and offering his wife, and she was pregnant? I said, yeah, I remember the conversation. He goes, do you remember what you said to me? I said, yeah. He goes, I'll never forget it. I'll never forget what you said to me. And I said to him, both of them, I said, I need you to enjoy your
Mm.
child.
Oh, wow.
I need you to really enjoy it. I don't want you to worry about me, about my wife, about our kids. That's our journey. I need you to enjoy your firstborn. I need you to really embrace it, experience it.
Mm.
I don't want you walking on eggshells. I don't want you to worry about us. And he said, I've built my entire way of dealing with my children and bring them. I've modeled it on the way that those words, which you said to me, that compassion.
Wow.
And I didn't realize. I mean, he was, we talked about it recently.
Is
So,
is he older or younger than you?
no, he's 11 years younger than me.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, you said at the beginning.
Yeah, yeah. So he's
Yeah.
baby brother, real
Yeah.
baby brother. But he, and so I'm grateful to him. I'm totally grateful to him. But just going back to the event, so how guys kick in. So this thing kicked in, right? I got to be a supporter, support.
Wow.
Did the funeral, laid my boy down in the grave. I took my three boys with me. My brother was there. My in-laws at the time gave me a really hard time, Joe, because they said, why did you take your children? Why did you take your children? And I just basically exploded.
Mm.
I just said, you know what? Piss off, all
Yeah.
of you. F off. Just go away. And I that supporting role, that just suppress your feelings, suppress my grief, didn't matter.
Yeah.
Well, it's just resurfaced this year.
Yeah, I mean, and so it has. It's valid, of course.
Yeah.
It's there.
And that is the key why I'm going in that direction, because that's what guys do, and it impacts them. It impacts them in such a profound way. I look at something. I mean, we're talking about 20 years. It's 20 years to the day.
Mm.
On 27th of April this year, it'll be 20 years. And I was shocked at, after all that time, I read an article, I read some case study, and I'm crying.
Yeah, of
And
course you are.
I am emotional. I weep for him. You
Mhm.
know, I lived with my brother before I came to the UK, so I'm watching his oldest son grow, and he always reminds me of my boy.
Mm.
What would he have been like? He's 20 now. Raz's oldest son is, maybe he's 12, he's 20. So he's a big, big, handsome guy. And I thought, yeah,
That's the thing about the man being strong. I mean, tell us a little bit about your business, because I know you've done a lot of research on this.
so the business is basically, and this is a gift that my son has given me,
Mm.
right? To help other fathers, grieving dads,
Yeah.
to help them, really to help them learn how to carry their grief and be that support, for their partner and family. And this is the biggest, and I didn't realize at the time, I've only realized it now. This is the biggest battle that goes on. And they're asking this question: am I allowed to grieve?
Yeah.
Is my grief valid? I
Mm.
have to turn up for her. So they're saying to themselves, I have a choice to make. Either I'm selfish and take the grief from her, or I be a supporter. And I'm saying, no, you can actually be both.
Yeah.
And that's where my expertise, my experience, that's what I want to give to these guys and say, look, you can have both.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's as simple as that.
I was on a call with you and you were expressing some things because you'd been doing your research and you'd been in some forums and you were one of the things that you were saying was that it was the women that were reaching out saying they were
Yes.
worried about the partner, that men don't have. I think what you were saying, that men don't generally even reach out.
No, they don't. And that's what I'm struggling with at the moment. So I've now communicate within 4 Facebook groups, and I've had nearly 22, 25 different forms of communication.
Mhm.
One out of that has been a guy.
Oh
And they only come out, and it was his son's birthday that day.
my gosh.
He would have been 5. And this is his
So
quote. He
he was
goes,
still thinking about it when his
yeah,
son would have been five.
yeah, yeah.
Mm.
And his quote was, it doesn't matter if it's 5 minutes, 5 months, 5 years, 500 years. The grief never goes away.
Mm. Wow. Okay. So it sounds like the route to them is through the women, but
To the women,
I'm
yeah.
also thinking about when I've heard in the past with GPs and doctors that women go to the doctor, but the men don't.
Yeah, they don't.
So you've got a bit of a challenge here.
I have a challenge, and
But remember how much you walk the streets of London and remember all the manual work you did and all the things you've been through.
yeah,
You're up for this challenge.
yeah. And the thing is that, look, ultimately, it's my calling.
Mhm.
Well, I'm not even naturally. You think, is it going to work? Isn't it going to work? It's a natural thing. It's a natural human
Mhm.
emotion. But you just plug away,
Yeah,
and you plug away, you plug away, you plug away. And at some point, it's going to drop.
it will. I mean, it's like
Yeah,
any business, and that's why there's the why, isn't there? That's why we're told know your why. Because look, I've been in this community for 5 years, and everybody I meet are shocked. What, you've been here 5 years? What, you're still going after 5 years? Oh my goodness, you've been at this for 5 years. And it can be looked at two ways. Why haven't you got to the point within a year? Why are you 5 years? Because it's so deep and it's so much of a mission of mine that I'm willing to just keep going and going and going and
yeah, yeah,
going to
yeah.
make it
And
happen.
and ultimately, the discovery is, for me anyway, is what fulfills me.
Yeah. It's not about,
You-
it becomes not about the money anymore. And it's
Yeah,
really funny because I was listening to a podcast probably about a year ago, a bit longer. And I was listening to this podcast, and the guy said it became not about the money anymore. And then the money showed up.
yeah.
And it's exactly how it happens.
Yeah, and my father said to me because when I joined Launch You, I was a little short of cash, and bear in mind that he's flat on his back, so and he said, "How much you need?" I said, "I need about 2 grand." He goes, "Okay," and transfer it then. And it's not like he's got money. He's been broke 4 times in his life, and he's at the moment he's not in a good place. But he gave me the money, and he said, "Just take one advice from me." I said, "Okay." He said, "Don't chase the money." And for the
Mm.
first 18 months, what did I do? I chased the money.
But I think we all do. I think,
Yeah.
it's like any child, isn't it? We're all included. I'm watching it. It doesn't matter how much you want to save your children from something. They've got to go through it to understand it. There's an intellectual understanding, and then there's a embodied understanding.
Yeah.
And this is
Yeah.
something that I've had to learn about my own kids,
Yeah.
especially in their early 20s. Got to let them go out and do whatever they need to do to find their own journey.
I used to always say to my mother, bless her, and I'm going to give a little tribute to her. So I used to say to her, if you want your children to be close to you, learn to let them go,
Mm-hmm.
give them the freedom. They
Mm-hmm.
will come. She thought by smothering them, keeping them close, that this was for her, not for them, right? Not for us.
Yeah.
So the more she squeezed in, the further, especially my younger brother and sister, ran away from her. And what we do as parents is that we demand so much of our children when we are able-bodied, right? And we squeeze every ounce of goodwill out of them,
Mm-hmm.
especially Asian communities I'm talking about. And when the time comes, when we get ill and we need help, they don't turn up because
Mm-hmm.
they're exhausted, they're tired,
Yeah.
they don't want to do it. And so, I mean, I can talk about parenting till the cows come home, but and again, for my mom, she realized at the end,
Yeah.
right at the end, and that's poor thing.
Beautiful that she realized.
Yeah, and she apologized. She apologized to so many different people, Joe. And I she said, "Mom, please don't apologize. That's it. I'm done. We're
Mm.
done." But the night before she passed, she said to me, there's two things I'm going to leave you with, and two bits of advice. One, whatever decide, because she knew my marriage was breaking up. She goes, whatever you decide in your life, be happy with it. And
Mm-hmm.
number two, you're the only one, I'm going to say this to you, in this family that is capable of keeping the family together.
Mm.
And so that sense of community, that sense of relationship, you know, that's where I've always been. I built a community with the chefs that I used to supply. I built a community, obviously within my own household. Today, if I look at my own self, and it comes in very, very naturally. You know, I'll call my sister up, call my brother up, I call my other brother up. They're living down the road from each other, but they're not talking to each other. I'm saying, come on, guys, let's, you know. And this is this. She picked up on it. She picked up on it. It's something that I have learned, especially coming to launch you, especially doing the webinar work. Now, the growth happens in the giving.
Yeah. You
Gotta
know that,
give.
have you read that book, The Go-Giver?
No, I haven't.
Oh, it's really good. It's a business book, and it's about giving. It's a really good book. It's a small book, and it's a good one to read.
The Go-Giver. Yeah.
Yeah, The Go-Giver.
Okay.
Great book. It's in alignment with you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
And you know, people like you, there's others in the community. Are so inspirational, Joe. I mean, just you know, I was so happy to see that you wrote a book. I haven't had a chance to read it. I have got a whole list of books I want to read, so I'm gonna
I'm
come to that.
rewriting it. I'm
You are
rewriting.
you
Yeah,
okay?
so for me, it was important that I got that book out because I read that, well, just as I learned that only 3% of podcasters get past something like episode 11. And this, you know, whoever's watching, you might be watching this, I might not be at this episode anymore, but this is episode 40 or 41. But I'm
Okay,
shortening them down to different channels, but I've recorded that many. Um, so I wanted to get past these milestones, and I've got someone lined up for episode 50 that they've said, well, I'll do it at 50, who's a really good guest, but I always want to keep it normal guests
yeah,
like
yeah,
you, like yourself, because I think there's so much wisdom in the ordinary.
yeah.
But I got the book out because I read that only it was a very small percentage. It might have even been 1%. It was really small of people who write books get them published. So I got it published, and it's finished, but it's not complete.
Okay,
So I've been on the community, and I've been talking to Anna, who's one of the mentors, and I'm rewriting it now. It's going to be
nice.
so much more complete.
Yeah,
But you know
yeah.
what I managed to do? Not everyone's going to know what this is. The actual one that I wrote is on PDF now, and it's a lead magnet.
Mhm.
So it was always had a use anyway.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
And this is the point. I mean, there's so many things that I could talk about. You know, experiences. Ultimately, you know, this since I jettisoned the affiliate marketing side of things, which is on the 8th of January this year.
Mm.
I just stopped. So that's it. I'm not going to do it. And I hate being beaten. So yeah, I just yeah.
Well, that means
I
I can
am
put, I'm
I
going to
am gonna
put my link in the comments for that one then.
yeah. So I am gonna go back to affiliate. You know, at some point.
Yes, of
But
course. But right now you've got a calling,
yeah,
and
and
it's
so it's really important that I do this.
mhm.
Um,
And you know,
because
if we've got our fingers, what I discovered, my big thing of 2025 was narrow it down and focus into that was my biggest thing of 2025. It started off, I've got about 6 things on the go, and now I've narrowed it down. Things started moving forward so much quicker.
yeah, yeah, and they do. And the thing is that, you know, I sometimes I'm working 10, 11 hours till 11, 12 o'clock. And my wife says to me, you know, you coming to bed? And I said, and I don't feel tired.
Mm.
You
Well,
just,
that right there,
there's the flow, the flow. I'm always in that
that's the
flow.
difference, isn't it?
Yeah,
That you said that you were exhausted by the
mhm,
time you got to a certain point in that business.
yeah,
I think it was exhausted. It was a word
yes,
like that.
yeah,
Look at you now. You're in the flow. It is when you start following the thing that lights you up. I actually recorded a podcast just before you. Um, in person, and that one's coming out the week before yours. And every time she talked about the thing that she's doing, her whole demeanor, because I've sat next to her, her whole demeanor, everything lit up. She became like animated.
Yeah.
And that's the message I want to get out there. When I was 48, I was sat there. I mean, God, I've been so fortunate because I've had jobs that I've loved. And I've lived a lot of my life with jobs that I was able to be entrepreneurial within and able to treat them like my own business. So I'm not like the majority of people
Mm.
in that I've had fulfillment in a job, but latterly I got to the point where that wasn't there anymore and I couldn't understand why and what had gone on and I didn't have any information. And this is what and I felt, and I named it, this was the first job I left. It was the money trap, it's the golden cage. And I sat there and I left the marriage first. I left the 10-year home first. I hung on to the job and I hung on to the job. And then in the end, I just couldn't work with the job. And I actually left a job that paid 6 figures, not knowing what I was going to do, because I just couldn't do it any longer. A job I'd been in 15 years, I literally could not do it any longer. I couldn't function in it. It should have been easy to function in it, but I,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I'm passionate about getting to people and saying it's not a trap. You don't have to be trapped. There are ways. And you don't have to do what I did. You don't have to go and travel to Hawaii and jump off a cliff and end up, changing your whole life and moving and all that lot. You can actually do it alongside what you're only doing,
Yeah.
but there's a way out. It doesn't
Yeah.
have to be like that.
You're right, and sometimes nature shows you the way out, and at the time you just don't. You're so focused on trying to save it, and we resist the.
Yeah,
If we keep resisting, it persists.
yeah,
So let
that get
go.
forced. Yeah.
Yeah. So I remember, my business going down. We had a cyber attack, and so business went down in 2018, and you know everything that defined me
Mm.
sat there. My business, my house, my cars, my family, my marriage,
Mm.
everything that I identified with sat there, and one by one, everything was unraveled.
Yeah.
Everything, and if I think the one that hurt the most, I lost my mother during that time also. So that's two that I guess that one, losing my mother was unexpected. That hurt the most, but the other one was my children.
Yeah.
They it's a long story, but a lot of disruption in the relationship, and it's taken me a long time to get back into their life. One of them is still not there. And I was saying to my wife the other day, we were walking, and saying, it's strange that I have certain feelings towards my kids, and they're not good feelings, because I feel hard done by, because I was there at every turn in their life, and they didn't show up for me. And we're talking about 30-year-olds here. We're not talking about little kiddies here, late 20s and 30s. And yet I am building a business around children.
But do you know something? I'd love to say something here. I know somebody who was forced to leave their family and a man, and eventually it all came full circle.
Mm,
And
I believe that.
the relationship's really great now.
Yeah, I
And
believe
it's
that.
sometimes it's time, and it's sometimes because somebody's going to be listening who's going to hear this, it might be relevant. Sometimes it's time, it's sometimes having the guts to go and stand in your truth, to model the truth.
Yeah.
And yes, the people around you might reverberate against that at the beginning because it's going to hit their wounds, because it's like turning a mirror on them,
Mm,
especially the people close to you.
mm,
And they're, oh, I'm not living my truth.
mm.
So,
It's so true. And when I met my current wife, she happens to be the sister of my brother's wife. So I met her in October 2027, 2022. She was visiting. I had just dropped in to see my dad. My dad was living with my brother at the time. We kind of hit it off, and we were talking, and this is the thing. This is I think, and this is when nature speaks to you, or God speaks to you, right?
yeah.
Um, we agreed that we talk. There was an interest there, and so from October to December we talked. I came to see her in December of 2022. It's when I proposed to her, and during that conversation, and I did not know this, my sister-in-law did not tell me, but she lost a second son, full term childbirth. So, and she says to me about this business, go do this. You need to do this. And so I have a partner who understands my reason. This is how this has all come together.
Yeah, I see that. Would you know something? We're going more into the spiritual realm now. Maybe we should do a spiritual podcast. Maybe you should come on my spiritual podcast.
Okay.
We're going to spiritual realm now because this is what I see so clearly. Everything's perfection, everything's synchronicity. And it's often later in life that you start to see this.
Yeah.
Even the young people are seeing this now. I'm living Glastonbury, so
yeah,
I'm seeing young people seeing this.
Yeah, I think spirituality is very much, in my opinion, now it has to be brought into to a certain level into, your everyday life, in your business, especially when you're building something that really you love and something that you care so deeply about.
That's been my challenge. So my challenge has been blending the two, especially my mum was schizophrenic, and see how it all weaves in perfectly.
Yeah.
Your purpose ends up being something that you had to work through.
Yeah. And so, you reflect back on your life, and I often speak to Hama, my wife, about this. Is do I have any regrets about anything really? I have one, and I guess that's the one is that I miss the family life. When I say family life, I miss my children. Yeah. We had a very close relationship, especially my oldest. He's in Dubai now. By the way, they're all doing fantastically well. Mm-hmm. So all the hard work that we put in as parents, and I'm saying she's done it too. Mm-hmm. That they are where they are because we did some things right, and so yeah.
Yeah, and I live in Glastonbury, and my son lives in Scotland, and my daughter's in Guatemala, and my grandson's in Guatemala. And when I used to talk we do this 90-day video challenge, and I used to say things like freedom lifestyle so I can see my children. In recent times, I've come to believe they're where they need to be. Yeah. And they're discovering what they need to discover. Yeah. And I've now got this space to build what I need to build. And what am I, having been a grandparent is so different. What legacy am I leaving my giant grandchild? And recently I asked a man, because I was wanting to understand, because I told you I went on this thing to try and understand men. I was wanting to understand what my son needed from me, because it was easy to see what my daughter needed from me. But what did my son need from me? And I asked, what do you need from your mum? I said, if things were going to turn around and suddenly you were going to become close to your mum, what do you actually need from your mum? And do you know what he said? For her to go and live her life and to live it to the fullest. That's what he said. And I realized your children want you to live your life to the fullest.
Yeah, he's absolutely right. If I look back at when my parents used to argue, and this was very recently before my mother passed away, and I said, you know what makes me really happy? You too. To both of them, I said, what would make me really happy is if you just love each other.
Yeah.
That's all I want from you. I just want happiness. Just stop fighting. They couldn't understand that. But that's what we as children, as guys, even guys, I mean, that's what we want. My wife had her oldest here just recently. He's become a doctor. He's 32. He's getting married to somebody outside of the community. And that's fine. That's okay. That's good. But my wife was very, very, she found it very difficult. One, she felt that she was losing him, and two, this was just huge for her. So I sat down with her. I said, "Look, the problem is not him.
Yeah,
the problem is you. You." And I said, let's go through this. Let's talk through this. So I coached her through it, and I said, learn to let go. And so, for example, the boys she's got younger one lives here, the other one lives in the US. They both came together, they're very close. They went away on holiday. And she goes, well, what about me? I said, well, what about you? She goes,
Yeah,
I want to go on holiday with them.
because in your culture that you've grown with,
Yeah.
because I've got a really good friend, and he was a customer of mine for a very long time, and we became friends. And I recognize so much of what you're saying in my friend, and it's the family and it's the culture, and you have expectations, don't
But
you?
it's changed, Joe.
Yeah,
The world has changed. And I said to her, and I said, you've got to shift your mindset
yeah,
to, if you want your son, give him the freedom, give him the space, give
mm,
him the space, right? Let him come to you. Don't chase him. Don't call him. Don't let him come to you. And you know what? He went away happy. He stayed here 1 month and he said, Mom, and he had issues. I mean, he had issues with his dad. He's got issues with his mother. But and 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 she goes, I want to go on holiday with him. I said, why?
mm,
Why do you need to go on holiday with him? Because I said, it's their time. They're the ones who are going to live their life together.
yeah,
We'll go. We'll leave. So whatever time you've got, just spend it in giving.
yeah.
Unblock that road for him. Take
That's
all the roadblocks out.
that's beautiful. That's
Yeah.
beautiful. Really beautiful. I feel like I could talk to you for hours and hours and hours. I feel like we're going to do another one of these in the future. So what I'm going to put in the comments is the link to your business.
Yeah.
What's it called? Because we haven't said what it's
So
called. Yeah.
stilldad.net.
So I'm going to put the link to that, and I will update links appropriately as we go
Yeah.
along. And I really look forward to publishing this one. Now, I do ask two questions at the end of every
Okay.
podcast. I'm going to ask them to you. And some people like them and some people don't. So let's see what happens. And the answers that come out, the last person, I loved her answer on the second one. So there's a bit of pressure for you because it was different. So if you could go back to any moment in your journey, any moment, and speak to yourself, you know how we do the future self stuff,
That's
and
right.
we're
Yeah.
doing a past here, and you
Mm.
could speak to yourself and you could give that past version of yourself that didn't know about all this future pacing and everything, you could give them a little message that they could hear. Where would you go and what would you tell him?
There's a particular moment that I can never forget. I must have been under 10. I think it's eight, 7 or 8. My father we went down to the downtown in Jeddah in Saudi. And I don't know, I was just steaming that day. I can remember I was just feeling very angry. And I think I need to go and buy some clothes or what have you. So we walked into this shop, and I was very rude to the shopkeeper. He was my father's age, probably older. He was a Lebanese guy. I can never forget what he said to me.
Mm.
He's also talking to my father too, but he was talking to me. And he pointed at me, he goes, life will teach you
Mm.
how to be with other people.
Wow.
And yeah, I'm gonna be 60 in 2 weeks.
Mm.
I've never forgotten that. Bless him. Bless that man.
So what would you say to the little boy?
Number one, I would say be easy on yourself.
Mm.
Just stop being angry. What are
Mm.
you angry about? And really also, you know, life's too short.
Mm.
Just it's very difficult at that stage. And this is what I'd probably say to him. Look, you're young, you're impetuous, ambitious, angry. You got this raw blood running inside of you. Um, you have a long way to go in
Mm.
life. So pace yourself,
Mm.
you
Love,
know.
love it.
Yeah. Pace yourself. That's what I would probably say.
Mm.
We're in it for the long game. And by the way, the long game doesn't end here.
Yeah,
It continues.
yeah. Well, I believe that.
Yeah.
And given I've told you who my avatar is, and you could only tell them one thing, you wanted to impart a bit of wisdom and pay forward, what would you say?
It's something I'm going to share um, that Brené Brown taught me. Okay. It's about hope.
Mm,
We hope is really important. It's really important to have hope. But hope is a function of struggle.
mhm,
And if hope doesn't exist if you don't struggle,
mm,
you got to have struggle to have hope.
mhm,
And however, hope can be taught. It's not an emotion, it's not a feeling. It's actually a structure.
mm,
So in that struggle lies three things that one should embrace if they're struggling. One is um, goals. Important to have a goal, not many, a goal. Two is a pathway. Understand the pathway to that goal. And three is agency, the intention, the
mm.
willingness to do that. But you could not go through those three stages or levels to hope if you don't have struggle.
True.
You've got to have struggle. And we all have struggle. Now, how we look at that struggle, that's the key to get to hope.
Absolutely. It's really interesting because I kept thinking faith while you were saying that.
Faith, yeah,
Hmm.
totally. Very much on faith. There's a prayer that I was taught by my mother, and in that prayer, again, not to get religious, but to God, when you speak to God, or when we speak to God, you know how we say sometimes to people or to God, I have trust in you, or you know, I hope you can do this.
Hmm.
But there's another reframing of that, and this is the way I speak to my God:
Hmm.
is that you are hope
Oh.
and you are trust.
Oh. Wow.
It's not that I have hope in you or trust in you. Are that.
Yeah. Wow. My gosh. Okay, I'm impressed with your answer. No, that was beautiful. I love that. And it's been really good having you on here. Thank you. Thank you for being so open. You know what? I perceive that your openness will be such a gift to people. I know I'm really open and I don't, I mean, I'm so vulnerable and so open, and people tell me it's inspiring. And you're a man. And I truly believe that mine will be inspiring, but because you're a man, then we're going one step further here. So thank you for that.
The privilege is mine, to be honest, and the honor. Honestly, I am grateful for you to invite me, and these things can only be good for community, for others.
Yeah.
So thank you very much.
Thank you.